Hey guys, my name's Miguel, and last time we started to dive into basically the basics of Maya, navigation, extrusion, and selection tricks. And this was the thing that we created last time, right? This interesting gear looking object. Now, today we'll be dive into other aspects of modeling. So we'll be covering a process which involves hard surface and also involves importing in Maya, importing in ZBrush and modifying it and improving our model more. And we'll also be covering smoothing groups. That's a lot of things to cover. Anyway, so today we'll be firstly approaching smoothing groups. So what is smoothing groups? Smoothing groups is basically how a tangent is facing or shading the model basically in a 3D space. So the way that you're shading, the way that a shading behaves on a 3D model. So perfect example of smoothing groups that is currently happening right now in our eyes is that if you notice that this inner circle that we have here is very smooth compared to our jaggedy edge outer layer in here. Now it's really important as a junior artist that you know basics about smoothing groups. The reason why that you need to know about smoothing groups is that most of the time we don't really care what smoothing groups is, and we tend to hurt our final output when we're trying to bake our high poly to our low poly. And when we do that and no knowledge about the smoothing groups in general, what would happen is usually either A, we screw up our baking in the process where we're gonna have a lot of edge artifacts, which we'll be showing you guys later on. And two, we'll also be having a lot more weird ambient occlusion errors, which we don't want. So in this first section, we'll be showing you guys the smoothing groups. So smoothing groups, in simple terms, is basically just in general how to smooth your objects properly. And a lot of people tend to disregard this step, and it's really crucial when you're trying to make sure that your bake is properly made. So in this case, what I would usually do is I would look at my model and see where is the smooth parts and where it's supposed to be smooth and where it's supposed to be solid. The thing is that you don't want to make sure that everything is smooth, otherwise what would happen is that you're gonna have really bad shading like this. So if what we did earlier was we select this object and then we said soften edge, and now we have a lot of ugly shading, right? So I'll show you guys ways to fix this model and how we could improve this model and how we could fix the smoothing groups. Sounds good. So at the moment right now, we have a really bad shading model, which usually this is the tendency if everyone's on a rush of trying to bake things. Sometimes this smoothing groups isn't as good, and it would usually lead to a lot of normal tangent errors. So how I would fix this model if it's really screwed up like this, I would usually smooth up the edges first. So as you can see here, I'm gonna start smoothing this edge so that it would look proper. So any edge loops that I see right now, I would try to smooth that first. So harden that first. So as you notice, as I start to harden those edges, it's starting to look proper. So now that's what we want for each of these, every single model. So we're doing that in every possible way. So I'm selecting each of these edge just so I could smooth it. Now I can't necessarily select this like I did here because um, there's okay, so one of the reasons behind that, because there is a lot of edges connected to one edge. Now usually and when that happens, you can't really consider this edge as an edge loop, since because it's covered with a lot of edges, not only if it's just one, and it's fine. So I'm just gonna select this one right here, and now I selected everything. I'm going to go ahead and harden these edges. So as you notice, it's starting to look proper, and we're continuing to fix these smoothing groups. So actually, before I harden these edges, I'll be showing you guys what those how to preview your smoothing groups. So to preview your smoothing groups, you'd have to select your object and hold Shift and then right click. And then now you see you have an option for soften and harden edge. You're gonna say toggle soften edge display. Now as you notice, if you select this object, you would notice that anything that is smooth is basically a dotted line, and anything that is solid or hardened edge is basically a straight line. So you want to make sure that your smoothing group is acting correctly, and you don't want too much of these dotted line everywhere, and you want everything to make sure, you want your model to act properly and right. So to fix that, we're basically going to make sure that the smoothing groups is correct. So in this case, that's what we're doing, is we're fixing the smoothing groups and how it looks. So I'm going to go to mesh display and click harden edge. There's also other ways and shortcuts that you can press harden edge. You can also try to go ahead and select edge and double click this one. You can also try holding Shift and right click again, and you go here in the soften edge menu and you go ahead harden this edge. So that's the other shortcut if you don't want to press that again and again. So I'm just going to double click this, keep fixing whatever I can fix here. So you have to constantly press Shift if you want to keep selecting edges. Otherwise, if you don't, it resets to that one, like I said before. Harden edge. Looking good. Now, all we have to do is fix the remaining ones, which is this weird looking shaded gear. So that's what we're doing, is we're trying to fix that too. So select some edge loops here. So that it acts properly. So this is a very good exercise for you guys, because you have to know what looks right and what does not look right. So what does not look right is a square that has weird shading, because we all know that square does not have weird shading, not unless if it's spherical. So now it's starting to shape up, but we still have some shading issues on the edges, so we just have to select this one and double click it. So it's gonna select the whole edge loop. So I'm just going to do that, keep selecting all these remaining edges here. You know what, I'm just going to select the edge that's supposed to be hardened. So in this case, it's the whole thing. Since it's a cube, then it makes sense that I would have to select all of this. Now it takes time, but the idea here is that you're trying to train your eyes to look for bad shading, because you don't want bad shading all over your model, not unless if it's spherical, like I said, or if it's a dome-like shape, then it makes sense. Great, we're starting to have some progress. And now, let's press the harden edge. Or, yeah, let's just press it here. Okay, harden edge. There you go. Hey, we got it. So ideally, this is how it should look like, and this is how it should not look like. Thanks for watching.